Rivalry is the hardest word to say.
You're right.
Rivalry.
No,
Rivalry.
Oh, you guys nailed it.
Rivalry rake.
Rivalry rate presented by Continental Tires.
What's up, everybody? This is MLS, and I'm your host, Jillian Sakovitz, alongside Sasha Kleshtin, Bradley Wright-Phillips, and Mo Adu. Now, we have Rivalry Week presented by Continental Tire ahead on this lucky number, match day number 13. But we also decided to have a little bit of fun this week. Let's pretend that the season ended today, because we are officially 1/3 of the way through the season. And I want to give you guys some information. For reference, FC Cincinnati and New England were tied at 24 points apiece last year at the top of the Eastern Conference standings. Seattle led the West with 20. The Golden Boot race at this point in the year was a three-way tie between Denny Bouanga, Christian Espinoza, and Jordan Morris. So think about that. So what does it all really mean? I don't know, but we're going to pretend that the season ended today. And Mo, do you know who we are in the graces of?
Tell me. Let me know.
Just guess. We've got two former MVP finalists in the house with Sasha Kleshtin and Bradley Wright-Phillips.
Back in the day.
There we go.
Yeah, it was.
I'll tell you what, in 2016, we both got robbed.
We were robbed. It's ridiculous. We were robbed.
We should have been the first ever co-MVPs in MLS history.
That's adorable. David Villa of NYCFC taking it there in 2016. Here's a fun note. Brad came in second, Sasha in third. Brad, you won the media vote, but Sasha, you won the player vote.
That's what I'm saying. I have the respect of my peers. Brad, well, we're part of the media now, so we can't really complain.
But shout out to my people at the media, man. You guys know your
Brad
stuff.
was savvy. Brad was savvy. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to win over the people.
Brad sent jerseys to everybody in the media that season.
Unless you've been living under a rock, the clear front runner at this point in this season is Lionel Messi, who is just running away with absolutely every statistic on the planet. Goals, assists in MLS, and he could potentially be on track to beat what Carlos Vela did back in 2019, an MLS record season for him, a year he bagged the Golden Boot and the MVP, a record 34 goals for the Golden Boot, 39 goal contributions. Messi on track to beat that with 10 goals, 12 assists, so that's 22 goal contributions so far. Nearly halfway to Vela's numbers. Note, he will likely miss 5 to 6 games with Copa America. And let's not forget the guy had 5 assists this past weekend. So, Mo, Messi, what was your reaction when myself, Sasha, Brad, and some others said that the Red Bulls could potentially give them a hard time, and then Messi comes out and assists on 5 of 6 goals?
I just laughed. I mean, that's all I do nowadays when I watch Messi play. I just laugh. It's joy, it's pureness, it's just wholesomeness that I just get from watching the greatest player of all time play. He came to this league and we all had expectations of what he was going to do. And in some ways, he's kind of surpassed that. Maybe he's met what we thought he was going to do. But to me, I feel like he's even surpassed what I anticipated him doing in this league. It feels like every single week that we watch him play, he's setting some new record. This past weekend, the most goal contributions in a game with 6, the most assists in a single game with 5. It's just an absolute joy to watch. And unless you're just making an argument for argument's sake, Lionel Messi is a clear favorite. But what I will say, there's someone I feel like that's close to that. That's close to what he's doing and is in some ways even, I don't want to say more impressive, but impressive in his own way, and that's Chicho Arango. Because what he's done at Salt Lake so far this season, to have them top of the West, 9 goals, 7 assists in 11 games. By the way, Salt Lake scored 18 goals so far. His goal contributions, 16 total, right? So his involvement and his role within this Salt Lake side as he's wearing the armband this season has been incredibly influential. The challenge for him is he's going against Lionel Messi, but there is one caveat to that, and that's what you mentioned beforehand, Jill, that Messi will miss games this summer with Copa America. For Chicho Arango, that's got to be prime time. That's got to be golden time for him to step up, continue the incredible pace that he's on right now for Salt Lake. But that's the time for him to try to surpass Messi, create some kind of a cushion, some kind of a separation factor there, whether it's in goals or the assist category, maybe even both, if he's going to have a serious chance of winning MVP. But I think what he's done in Salt Lake, guys, has been impressive because of the numbers, both goals and assists, but also the supporting cast that he has to play with in comparison to the cast that Messi has in Inter Miami.
Yeah, Mo, I can't argue with that, to be fair. You make some good points, but if we're going to use that argument for Chicho, Why do we not talk about Luis Suarez? Is it because he's Messi's teammate? He's got 10 goals, 5 assists. If he doesn't go play any international football, which I doubt he will, I don't know if his knee will allow him to. Why is he not going to be racking up those stats? I think I'd throw Luis Suarez in there as a dark horse or someone that should be mentioned more.
But I think we ignore him because he's already that's how Chicho's going to win. Because just like me and you in 2016, Messi and Suarez are going to split the vote, and Chicho's going to come up and take that trophy. Honestly, Chicho's been fantastic. Mo, you've hit the nail on the head with every point you've made. The guy has been unbelievable. And he's not just a one-man team. He's making the players around him better. Guy's been awesome.
Thanks.
Isn't that, though, what a most valuable player is? It's the guy who, if he left his team, the team would suffer the most. If Messi left Miami, to Bradley's point, that's a team that still has one of the most incredible, if not the most incredible roster we've ever seen in MLS with guys like Suarez.
Yeah,
I honestly think. Sorry, go on, Mo.
No, I was going to say, I get what you're getting at there, Jill, but I still look at this Inter Miami team, and if they're going to go on to win Supporters Shield, and even more importantly, win MLS Cup, they need their most valuable player on the team, and that's Messi. They need their most valuable player in terms of the guy who can always make the difference, the guy who so far this season has shown in every single game he's contributing, whether it's in a goal, an assist, or both. And so, yes, I understand what you're saying in terms of the contributions that Chicho Arango has brought relative to the amount of goals that his team has scored collectively. But I still think that if Inter Miami are going to go on to win the whole thing, they're not going to do that without Messi.
Yeah, but Mo, there should be 2 trophies. And I'm going to call up Don Garber and try to get one, because one for extraterrestrials and one for humans, right?
That's
so
facts.
For the mere mortals, I think Chicho Arango has the lead right now. But for the aliens, Messi's got number 1.
In any other season, Chicho Arango be running away with that. Before we move on, I just want to ask you guys, if you're Arango, are you satisfied because you're playing in a league now that is associated with Messi, or are you like, get out of here, I want to be the league MVP?
No, you're buzzing. You're buzzing. Jill, you get to measure up against these. I said a few weeks ago on This Is MLS, just take a picture of this moment when he was head-to-head with Messi in goals. Take a picture of that moment. You're going to be outdoing what you would normally do because you're competing against Messi and Suarez. It's going to be hard for him to duplicate this season, I promise you, because they're just taking him to the limits. He's playing out of his skin, and he will want these players in the league with him. That's the true way you get tested.
All right. MLS Dark Horse Club, Sasha.
Player, right?
Player,
for
yes,
the MVP, yeah. It's got to be Lucho Acosta at this point. And I can't really argue against Messi or Chicho Arango to be the MVP right now. But in third place, for me, hands down, is Lucho Acosta. This team has only scored 13 goals this season. He's got 5 goals and 5 assists. In the 6 wins that Cincinnati has, he has 4 game-winning goals and 1 game-winning assist. So he's getting it done. This team, FC Cincinnati, without Acosta, would just be a good defensive team. Yeah. They're very good in the back, but he is the player that is consistently making the difference in attack for this team. Bupenza, off-the-field issues, that's your DP striker. Lucho Acosta says, no, I got this. I'm pretty sure his back is hurting, though, by how much he's carrying this team.
Wait, so Sasha, you're going with the reigning league MVP as your dark horse?
Yeah, look who he's compared to right now.
Okay. All right, you're really going out on a limb there, aren't you? MLS Cup favorites. Brad, who can take down Miami in the East?
Yeah, so you said it. So the favorites are obviously Inter Miami.
Okay.
Way too many game changers. Said that, yeah, let's forget about it. Aliens in the side, yeah, forget about it. Inter Miami. But if you're talking about a team, when they get done with the CONCACAF Champions Cup, we have to talk about Columbus Crew. That's a team when I see no distractions and they're just focusing on MLS, the most well-round balanced team in the league. It's the Columbus Crew. I wouldn't, if I'm seeing these two play against each other, I'm not just going to say Inter Miami win that game.
I agree with Brad. Columbus has been fantastic. I think they are the most balanced team. They can hurt you in many ways, and they can control the game. 100% against Miami, they will control the game. They will control possession. They will control space on the field. It's just up to whether they'll be able defensively or not to stop the attack for Inter Miami.
Yeah, guys, I agree with you about Columbus, and in a weird way, so we're talking so much about when they come out of this CCC run, that's when things can really kick on from a domestic and MLS standpoint. But I honestly feel like the CCC run is going to be beneficial for MLS form and for them to chase MLS Cup, because through this process, these guys have grown and shown so many more, I would say, important and valuable traits to their side than we saw even last season, where they went on to win MLS Cup, right? They've had to face some incredible amounts of adversity. Cucho had to miss games because of club suspension, and they still found ways to get results. They go down to Monterrey and do the unthinkable, right? So I think this journey, this run has benefited them as much as the experience they got from getting all the way to MLS Cup last year. And that in itself, that experience, I feel like could maybe be the difference of them being the team out of the East that gets MLS Cup.
I agree. When they bring that form back into the league, Mo, you talked about Monterrey. The way they managed the game in Monterrey was a different level. I think that's one thing MLS teams have struggled with. You know, we see a lot of teams go up in a game and they'll end up conceding late in the game. Columbus Crew managed that game. When they needed a free kick, they got it. When they needed to put their foot on the ball, slow the game down, they done it. It's so difficult to go and do that at a team like Monterrey. There's clear improvements. And I think when they're just concentrating on the league, Inter Miami are going to have some problems.
So Miami and Columbus could maybe our Eastern Conference championship, but who in the West can contend? And who, if you're putting your glasses on, who is in MLS Cup from the Western Conference come playoffs?
I wish I had some glasses here now that you said that to put on. But listen, I'd be a fool. I think I've said this before. I'd be a fool to bet against LAFC, right? They've shown that this team, since day one, they've built this culture of incredible expectations. But the beauty of it is their on-field product has matched the expectations that the fans have, that the club have, that the ownership group have for this team. MLS Cup champs, 22. MLS finalists last season, Campeones Cup finalists last season, CCC finalists last season as well. So this is a team that knows how to get into the big game, get to the big dance. Yes, they're going through a little bit of I guess you could call it an adjustment period where they're trying to get the best out of some new players. They've lost some big pieces and personalities within the group last year. But in the summertime, they have Olivier Giroud coming into the team. Who knows what other players come in? I trust John Thornton. I trust Steve Cherundolo, that ownership group, to go out in the market and bring in what they need to do, or to bring in the pieces they need to get back to another final, because this is a team that has incredible ambition, and they seem to know how to navigate the transfer market relatively well when it comes down to it.
I can't argue with that, Mo. I think you make a few good points there, but I can make the argument for a few other teams in the West, because that race seems to be more wide open. LA Galaxy is one. I'll give you a why they will, why they won't. Why they will, Pooch, Joveljic, Paintsil, one of the best attacks in the league. Why they won't, they still give up too many goals in the back. New signing, Emiro Garces, very athletic, very young. If Jalen Neal gets back to full health and starts playing every single game, you now have a more athletic backline. They need to close that up. Real Salt Lake is the other one. Why they will, Chicho Arango, and they're a well-balanced team. They defend well as a group, and they've got DP spots open if they go out into the market. I'm not sure they will. I hope they do, because I think why they won't is they need one more high-level attacker. So when teams focus on Chicho Arango, that they've got somebody else that can still put the ball in the back of the net.
Biggest surprise? Sasha,
you want me to kick this one off?
Go ahead, Sasha.
Oh, biggest surprise?
Yeah.
I said Colorado was going to be a playoff team this year, and y'all laughed at me. And so I feel pretty good about that one now.
Who laughed at you, Sash? Call them out. Who laughed at you? We need names.
All of y'all on this panel. Yeah.
That's because you're so
funny. Chris Armas is doing an awesome job. I know, I'm a funny guy. Come on. But listen up. The argument for Colorado is we all expected them to finish last, but they went out in the transfer market and did a really good job of adding some quality players. Not only that, they've got a center back now that if I had to vote right now, I would vote Moise Bombito into the MLS Best 11. He's been that good. Cole Bassett is stepping up now. We've always seen him score these goals when he arrives in the box late, but I think he's growing in confidence. Georgi Mihailovic has been good. Rafael Navajo is getting goals as well. So I think Chris Armas is pushing all the right buttons with this team, and they're hard to play against right now.
It's not often you hear me say this, but Sasha, you're completely right. There's only one biggest surprise for me, and it is Colorado. Listen, if we're being honest, Sasha, you're a liar. I'm the one that convinced you that this is a good team. But if we're being completely honest, this team hasn't lost. I think they've lost one game in 5 games. One of those fixtures was Inter Miami away. They come out with a 2-2 draw. Then just their performance the other day against New York City FC, go there and win 2-0. Before these games, we're still doubting them. This is a proper team that Chris Armas has put together. And let's be honest as well, with Chris, good friend of mine, I hadn't seen what he'd done managerial-wise. Like, as a head coach, he didn't do too well. this season he's convinced me that he knows how to get a team going, he knows how to create an identity and get his team believing and playing together and buying into a style. And for me, the biggest surprise of the season.
Hey, Chris, if you're watching this, Chris, friend of yours doubted you.
Now it makes sense.
I'm real with Chris.
Now it makes sense.
One of you had Chris Armas for
I never doubt him.
Had him for early coach of the year. I think it was Bradley.
I had this, of course. Sasha just watching the show and copying me.
All right.
Now you know why. It's his best friend.
We'll talk coach of the years, not friends, in a little bit. Mo, who you got biggest surprise?
Well, Brad's over here lying because he said there's only one surprise for him for surprising the year. You're lying. Toronto, you had Toronto this high up in the table right now?
You're right.
Get out of here. Toronto, I got so much love for Toronto. They gave me my first shot as a professional, so I will always be backing them and supporting them. But I tell you what, I did not see this coming. Golden Spoon last year, minus 33 goal differential. They scored the least amount of goals with Colorado with just 26. They had 0 road wins. Chaos in the locker room. They didn't have a real striker. I mean, there was just so many issues to try to correct and repair both on and off the pitch. And you bring in a manager, John Herdman, who had success in the international level. Club is different than international. But that man there, John Herdman, I give him credit. He's come in and done a hell of a job so far to have this team as high as they are in the Eastern Conference, especially because it's the Eastern Conference. So I look at Toronto, and they're the surprise team for me. They have 4 wins so far this season. Guess how many wins they had last season?
Oh,
yeah, you guessed it. So there you go. So you guessed it, right? That's 4 wins at home. Sorry.
And Mo, Insigne still to come back. They're putting in these performances when Insigne was on fire earlier in the season. They still have him to come back. They found a goal scorer in Owusu. Prince is getting it done. So I can't argue with that surprise. It is a big surprise, to be fair.
Now, Brad, I just want to tell you, I'm getting a little bit in my ear. You apparently had Toronto FC finishing 15th, which I believe is the very last spot in the Eastern Conference. So you are a bit surprised, aren't you?
You gotta be surprised.
I'm very surprised. Yeah.
Brad's very surprised because he never even filled out his prediction bracket. So he's like, damn, I picked them to finish 15th.
His ghostwriter. He got stuck as ghostwriter.
He's getting me in trouble.
I have to say, I know for a fact none of you three thought that we'd be talking about Minnesota United second in the Western Conference at this point in the season. So that's my surprise. Even bigger than that is the fact that they are averaging the same amount of points per game as, guess.
Inter Miami.
You heard that through my ear. I know that you No chance you would have guessed that. Through Inter Miami, the only 2 teams in the league averaging 2 points per game. So I'm going Minnesota United. Time now to talk regular season champions. If the season ended today at 24 points, that would be Inter Miami. So, we kicked everybody off our show who has won a supporter shield. And now we bring back in Mo Duke, Caitlin Carr, and Matt Doyle.
Wow, okay.
That's how you feel today?
Okay. Coming in hot. I like it.
Damn. All right.
I'm sorry. But, some people say no one cares about the supporter shield. So that's a conversation for another day. Someone who really cares about the supporter shield is Matt Doyle. Who can challenge Miami most to win the regular season?
The real answer is no one. I think that we would all pick Miami by a substantial amount at this point, but I'll make the case for FC Cincinnati. Partially because they have the know-how, but partially because they have the best defense in MLS. They invested big time in that defense over the past couple of years. DP, defensive midfielder, in Obina Nwodo, Matt Miazga, Miles Robinson at the back, and of course, this man scoring goals. They've allowed only 9 goals so far. Sasha made the case for Lucho Acosta as maybe a dark horse MVP, if the defending MVP could ever actually be a dark horse. And they've done all of this with the attack being kind of broken. Well, they just went out and they made a big ad in Kevin Kelsey. They started to get Corey Baird and Yuyu Kubo on the same page. And oh, by the way, Roman Celentano, who was the best goalkeeper in the league for the first month of the season, he's going to be back soon. So in a normal year, against normal competition, there's a really good case for FC Cincinnati. The problem is Lionel Messi and Inter Miami, they're not normal competition, and this is not a normal year. So, yeah, the best case, Cincinnati, but it's not a great one.
But Doyle, I hear you.
Go ahead. Well, let me add on to it because you're going to go against it. But I'm with you here, Doyle. I like this pick. The other big thing that I saw last year when they won the Supporters' Shield was they had 14 one-goal wins. And this year, they have 6 wins, 5 of them, once again, by 1 goal. So that same formula is there. Lucho, of course, is the one that makes that difference. But I think if they just run it back and continue this, they've got a good chance.
I actually was going to agree. I was going to agree as well, Kaylin. And you listen, I got nothing more to add to that because you're spot on. That's exactly what I was going to say is that the way that they're able to win 1-goal games on such a consistent basis is impressive. The only thing that I would say is at some point that well can run dry, and Lucho is carrying such a burden with this team. I know you just mentioned some of the new pieces that have come in, Doyle, but this is still a gamble in some ways unless they can start firing on all cylinders when it comes to the attacking third of the pitch.
What's a team that could surprise us, Kaylin, in this conversation?
I mean, it's tough with anybody right now with Inter Miami, but I'm going to go and make a little bit maybe out of bounds, a little bad timing pick with the New York Red Bulls. And I understand they just came off getting a second half annihilation to Messi.
6-2 thumping.
But you only lose 3 points. That's the way the Supporters' Shield works. It doesn't count extra because you lost by that distance. And the only 2 losses this team have away this season have been against Columbus, MLS Cup champions, and against Inter Miami. They've been really good on the road. They have away wins at Cincinnati, Houston. LAFC needed a 90+5 goal from Bouanga just to draw that match. The style of play, that works for the Supporters' Shield. That's why, as you mentioned, Jill, Sasha and Bradley have a few of these trophies in their cabinet already. Philadelphia also in 2020 plays a similar style, but I also think Sandro Schwartz, it's the beginning of this managerial appointment. He's still figuring out how he wants to adapt and change this team the way they play. So I know it's a bad week for Red Bulls and their supporters, but I'm keeping an eye on them towards the Supporters' Shield because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and I think this team has some legs behind it.
And it's worth remembering, around this time last year, Cincinnati went to St. Louis and they got destroyed 5-1. So it's not unprecedented for a very good team that eventually goes on to win the Supporters' Shield to take a massive loss on the road. But I think we're probably all still picking Inter Miami and Lionel Messi.
One team that hasn't been a disappointment is Miami. So let's focus on the teams that haven't been up to par as where we all expected them to be when we had this very conversation ahead of match day 1. Kaylin, your biggest disappointment club?
It's been New England, and it just jumps off the page to me as far as the disappointment and the expectations, and that's where it really has faltered for me. I thought this team would be a top 4 team easily in the Eastern Conference coming into the season. The one question I had was, how do the pieces all fit that number 9 position from Vrioni? I think Bruce Arena clearly was right. He had 1 goal all season, and it came in a losing effort at home. Ravas, they were spoiled a little bit for having 2 Premier League goalkeepers in Matt Turner and Petrovic, and clearly that didn't work. Now they brought in Ivicic, who was an improvement in this last week, but still, it hasn't been good enough, I have to say, from the manager's side, getting the best out of this group to unlock Carlos Gil, who for me is still a top 5 player in MLS, and it also falls on the players. They have not been good enough playing up to their potential, adapting, finding a way to get results, even if they haven't been at their best, or maybe adapting to a new system. And the question was, Caleb Porter has won 2 MLS Cups at 2 different places, and could he take this next step? They're now bottom of the Eastern Conference, battling out with San Jose for the wooden spoon right now. So that was not anything anyone, I think, could have expected. I surely didn't, and that's where the disappointment is.
Porter's 2 MLS Cups coming in Portland and Columbus. Mo, New England 7 of a possible 30 points. What do you do? What do you want to hear in the locker room right now? What can Porter do? Because ultimately now the eyes are on him as guys have started to come back, and the slight injuries are no longer really an issue.
Well, I would say Caleb Porter's in a similar position to Oscar Pereira in that they have 2 teams where you have personnel and the expectations. I think expectations is a good word that you use there, Kaylin, because the expectations amongst themselves as players, amongst the 2 coaches, amongst the fan bases are success, are to be closer to the top of the table. And I'm focused even more so on the Orlando standpoint because they had a record-setting year last year, 63 points, the most points they had in a season, the most wins, the best goal differential. So the expectation for this team was, how can you go and improve? Now, I know that they overperformed their numbers, their underlying numbers by quite a distance. And so some may say attribute a certain amount of luck to this team, but I think the foundational pieces that they have, Oscar Pereira leading the charge for them, I expected them to be a lot better than they have been so far this season. Back-to-back home losses, conceding in 17 seconds against Cincinnati this past weekend. It's been really embarrassing to see. And the biggest, I would say, indictment on this side is they didn't improve in the areas that you felt like they needed to improve on. I felt like they needed to get better in terms of getting a number 10 who can score goals, who can create goals, who can be that catalyst for everything positive in the final third. And then you expected Duncan McGuire to be out the door. So you were expecting an upgrade of sorts with the DP, Luis Muriel, coming in, and he hasn't scored a goal so far this season. So it's almost a little bit fortunate for Orlando that Duncan McGuire's deal fell through, because he's the only player on the team so far who's scored multiple goals. So all those things compiled together, it's just left me feeling really, really embarrassed, frustrated, a little bit disappointed, incredibly disappointed with Orlando this season.
Mo, Duncan McGuire has, I think, unquestionably been the best player on Orlando this season, and he's not even supposed to be there. They were trying to sell him to English Championship club. They could not get the deal over the line because of paperwork snafu. I think that New England has a great argument for the most disappointing team. I think Orlando has maybe a rock-solid argument for most disappointing team. I'm going to go in a different direction, though. I'm going to say it's Philadelphia. And the case I made for Philly was that these guys, this group of players, had earned the right to come back one more season as a unit, together, to try to get over the top and win a cup of some sort. Because they had come close so many times. MLS Cup, CONCACAF Champions League, they finished third a couple of years ago. Last year in the Leagues Cup, they finished third. They had come close so many times, and they had done it with their defense, and they had done it with the style of play where they were never comfortable to play against. And this year, they have come back. They went out of CONCACAF Champions Cup in embarrassing fashion to Pachuca, a 6-0 loss in the second leg of that one. They're giving up 1.6 goals per game. They've already conceded 16 goals. The season's not even a half or a third over for them. They've already conceded 16 goals. 2 years ago, the same group of players conceded 26 over the course of the entire season. And the worst thing about watching Philadelphia right now is that they look like any other MLS team. They don't look uncomfortable to play against. And that's why they're 8th in the Eastern Conference. They brought back 98% of the minutes from the guys who played last year. And those were the guys who played in 2022 and came so close to doing the Cup Shield double. It looks like a different team entirely. And it looks like that there are going to be big changes that need to happen in the summer. And I am so disappointed, because I thought the most romantic thing would have been to see these guys who have almost gotten to the mountaintop together, stay together one last year and get to that mountaintop. And they don't look like they want any part of it. And it's crushing to watch.
I'm no manager, but if I'm Jim Curtin, I'm bringing that monologue into the locker room for Philadelphia versus Orlando this weekend. I'm just saying.
Both teams could use it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Man, you know me, Doyle, and I'm always a big
we know.
advocate that I don't tolerate Philadelphia Union slander. But I gotta admit, the way you've put that, the way you framed that, because when you first said that you're disappointed with them, I was like, I gotta hear this. But the way you framed it, I don't have much of a rebuttal, to be honest. My hope is similar. Is similar to that they turn things around, but ultimately I do hope that they bring in some pieces in the summer, because this is a club that I think, even with some of the pieces that they have there and young players coming through, they still need a refresh. They still need an addition of some more quality, an injection of new blood into that group to maybe inspire them and reinvigorate their season.
Be brave, Mo. Pick them to win the Leagues Cup right now. Be brave and do it. Come on, Mo. You always say you love Philadelphia. Do it.
Come on.
What I always say is I don't tolerate Philadelphia Union slander. That's what I always say.
I'm a little surprised when I look around here. Okay, Philly, I like that. Expectations are high. But what about the Seattle Sounders? This is a perennial power team. Whenever you're going up against Seattle, you're worried. If you're going to Seattle, you're particularly worried. They're off to their worst start ever. They're in 11th place in the Western Conference, and we're not mentioning Seattle. How much of that is due to the fact that we've kind of seen this before? Seattle's had bad seasons. They had a bad season in 2016.
I mean, they had one bad season, Jill. Like, they had one bad season a couple of years ago.
They've had bad starts.
They've definitely had bad starts, and I think that's part of it. Part of it is also we understand that Pedro de la Vega was brought in to change the game for Seattle.
So we're surprised by Seattle, but we feel like they'll be fine. Is that kind of the consensus?
I think if you compare them and how they've played to the rest of the teams that we've talked about in this segment, I just think Seattle have been playing better, and I think that they have a clear path to improvement through getting De La Vega back and then maybe making a move in the summer. I mean, for Western Conference teams, they absolutely deserve to be in this conversation.
Had he not been injured, Pedro de la Vega would be a candidate for our next topic in Newcomer of the Year. Mo, who you got? You're handing this trophy out in May.
I'm gonna speak for all of us. I think it's pretty clear that it's Luis Suarez. 10 goals, 5 assists, 8 starts. Bad knee? What bad knee? The guy has come into this league and shown that when you have a certain skill set, and that's being an accomplished finisher, an efficient finisher, a top level finisher, then you're always going to have success. And Luis Suarez, I mean, he's the benefactor of so much combination play between himself and Lionel Messi, but he's proven that he is still at that level when it comes to finishing. So I'm going to get past him really quickly because I don't think you guys have any rebuttal in that regard.
Who'd be second?
Okay,
Who'd be
cool.
second? Yeah.
For me, the next one is Joseph Painsil. LA Galaxy for the past few seasons have been starved of a winger who's been as dynamic, as daring, who's come into a team first and foremost in the big city of lights, the big market, and settled, found his feet so quickly. But what he brings to this Galaxy side with his 4 goals and 4 assists, it's that pace, it's that outlet ball, it's that direct play for the likes of Ricky Puig to pick out, Marky Delgado out of midfield. But I just love the way that he's so confident, and he works on both sides of the ball. He loves to attack space and get forward, but he also is willing to do the dirty work defensively. And himself, the inclusion of Gabriel Peck as well, but more so Joseph Painsil, have really been the reason why we've talked so much about this LA Galaxy side this first half of the season. Oh, and by the way, he's also an accomplished music artist, right? So for this league, we love to highlight and bring out personalities. Joseph Painsil doing it on the pitch and off the pitch as well.
Well, it's funny because you guys were making a case in the first segment on MVP and the case maybe for an Arango instead of a Messi. I think Painsil makes the same argument here where if you took him off the Galaxy, they might not even be a playoff team right now. Whereas you look at Luis Suarez with Messi, I think you could make a pretty good case that Painsil has made a bigger difference as a newcomer into this side because last year the formula was simple. It was compress space against Ricky Puig, make that midfield tight, and they had nobody to get in behind. They had Diego Costa, a number of guys, but nobody was really stretching the field, and this is how this one player has changed the entire picture. If you drop and try to condense the field, suddenly you're leaving space in behind. If you go and protect against the ball in behind, you're giving too much space for them to cook through the middle. So it really has been one player that has made such a big difference for the picture. So that would be my best case, although, as you guys made, I think made the case, there's an alien category. Maybe it should just be like a Barcelona category.
I like that.
Messi and Perez, but Painsil has been incredible.
Category. You make the point, Caitlin, of someone who changes the picture of their team. Can't you say the same with Emil Forsberg at Red Bull?
You could, though I would actually make the case more for the other Swede they brought in this winter, which is Noah Eila, the young center back who has been fantastic, like borderline defender of the year caliber performance from Noah Eila so far. And what's different about him is his distribution, his comfort with the ball, his ability to keep the game on the ground and then put players like Forsberg or Lewis Morgan or Frankie Amaya pushing forward from central midfield, put them into position where they can do more than just crash, bang, bumper cars, demolition derby, which is how Red Bull have played over the past almost 10 years. No offense to Sasha and Brad. Like, they're actually playing soccer for huge stretches of the game now, which is not something that we've seen from them for a long, long time. And Forsberg's a big part of that. To me, Eila has actually been the bigger part of it because they have composure playing from the back in a way that it hasn't been part of their DNA in forever.
Are you going to join my supporter shield Red Bull bandwagon?
I am not.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I picked Miami before the season. I picked Miami before the segment, and I will pick Miami until they hoist the supporter shield on the last day of the season.
One category we won't be seeing at the end of season awards is this one, LVP, least valuable player. So we're going to do it here today in May. Now, we're not going to get super shady on this. This is about expectations. I am limiting you guys to designated players, the guys that are supposed to elevate their team. They're making the big bucks. Doyle, kick us off with the league LVP.
I mean, I think we might want to name this award after Xherdan Shaqiri. He has 2 goals and 2 assists in under 600 minutes. When he's available, which isn't all the time, he only plays on one side of the ball, and he does that at half speed. He wears that number 10, but he has not proved to be even a below average chance creator in MLS. Does a good job putting the ball on frame right there. But it's gotten to the point where everything was supposed to be built around him in Chicago over the last couple of years. They played a 4-2-3. They're not even playing a 4-2-3-1 anymore. He's not worth getting out there for Chicago. We talked about Joseph Paintsel in the previous segment about how good he has been as a two-way player. He adds so much to the Galaxy defensively. Xherdan Shaqiri is the opposite of that. He takes so much off the table for Chicago in terms of what they can do defensively. They're in 13th place again, least valuable player. Lifetime achievement award for him at this point.
Wow, that's tough. Wow. I want to see who Mo's going to follow.
I think maybe this has to go in the Chicago locker room. Okay, Mo.
Oh my God!
Please follow
just when you thought there was no more blood to trickle out, he pokes a new hole and more comes spewing out. It's like
I never want to disappoint you, Doyle. That's all I'm going to say.
Seriously, I'm gonna go back and find the tapes now. What you should say about me?
I always said if you played center back, you'd be playing today for Real Madrid. That's what I said about you.
I don't like this category, but if I have to pick someone, it's got to be Luis Muriel. And this is listen, Orlando. I don't hate you guys. I love you guys. You guys have more success with DPs. Everyone will admit you have to hit on DPs. I was unsure about Martino Ojeda last season, but I'm even more unsure of Luis Muriel. Since he's come into the league, he has 0 goal contributions. 5 starts, 9 games played, 0 goals, 0 assists, and just 3 shots on target. I mentioned before when we were talking about Orlando as a whole, they're a little bit fortunate that Duncan Maguire's deal fell through because he's been the savior at the number 9 position for them because Luis Muriel just hasn't delivered. Now you might look and point to other parts of his game and say, well, maybe he's bringing a little bit of this. Maybe he's bringing a little bit of that. For this Orlando team, they need a player who's going to be dynamic, who's going to be daring, but ultimately who's going to be scoring goals for them in the final third. And so far this season, it hasn't been Luis Muriel. There's still another 2/3 of the season to go, so maybe he can kick on. And I trust in Oscar Pereira to find a way to get the best out of him. But to date, so far, he hasn't been doing what he's supposed to be doing for his side so far.
Okay, you guys have both, I think, picked good examples of designated players that maybe haven't quite lived up to the billing. I think some fair criticisms there with Shaqiri and Luis Muriel, but at least they're there. At least they are showing up. There can't be another designated player less valuable to their team right now than Emmanuel Reynoso, who technically I think is still a player for Minnesota United, but is nowhere to be found, has not shown up, went back to go get his visa.
You can find him. You just got to be in the clubs in Buenos Aires. That's where you're going to find him.
I mean, this has been so disappointing. We've heard designated players maybe taking a pro day, but he's taking a pro season. This isn't the first time he's done this. This happened last season as well. So, sorry, guys. I don't mean to one-up you guys, but if we're going to give this award out, and it's painful to give out at times because you're pointing the finger, seems pretty easy here to point at Reynoso.
I gotta give a round of applause. Kaylin, you win. There's no.
This is not this. And credit to Minnesota though, for real, for Eric Ramsey to within that to be able to get this team, as you mentioned, Jill, 2 points per game. That's on pace with Inter Miami. They have done a fantastic job changing the system, not being it so based on one player. They've gotten the most of Taniela Wache, young players coming up. They changed the tactics, the formations, halftime substitutions, center back stepping into possession. It's been really fun to see in Eric Ramsey, I think, and for the whole club, I think, overall, to just kind of set that aside and move on with things has been impressive.
Imagine if this guy had a DP number 10.
Minnesota just 1 point behind RSL with a game in hand for the Western Conference top spot. And you know what? Before we start talking about the LVPs more on this show, you're all MVPs to me, and we're gonna.
Oh, you can't do that now. You already
wrap this segment. Continuing on with our very important third of the year through trophies, Mo Adu, if you were handing out the Ziggy Schmidt Coach of the Year award, who would it go to?
Come on now.
I know the
answer. You know me.
Yeah.
You know who I'm leaning towards here. It's Wilfred Nancy. Listen, last season a little bit unlucky to not win it. He was, I think, third in the competition between Bradley Carnell and eventual winner Pat Noonan. But this year, he's picked up, and this Columbus Crew team has picked up just where they left off last season. They're on this historic run through CCC. By the way, we could be updating that saying he's led them to CCC championship as well in a couple weeks. But they're still doing that while maintaining a good enough position in the league. They're still within striking distance, and I'm confident that as soon as they finish their CCC campaign, they'll be climbing right back into the top four. They're 2 points out of the top four right now, with the game in hand as well. The other part about Wilfred Nancy is he's had to face some pretty difficult situations this season, the main one being the whole Cucho debacle and dilemma. And I felt like he handled that really well. I know there are some who disagree and think that he could have gone about it a different way. I think in that decision, the way that he handled that, he showed that he's a man of principle. He doesn't sway or waver from his beliefs about not just football, but about the overall culture that he's building within the Columbus Crew. And I thought the way that he handled Cucho, the way Cucho has responded and come back and been a top player performer for his team yet again, it's a good reflection of the man that he is, but also the clarity that he has on what he expects from his players, both on the pitch and off the pitch.
Did you ever get the Cucho treatment, Mo? I just want to know before we move on.
The Cucho treatment in terms of what? Being disciplined?
Getting benched, but not for what you did on the field.
Nah,
No. I'm just curious.
Nah. I don't think so.
I know you would.
Mo's voice went real up right there.
I had to think about it for a second. Nah, I was a good dude, man. Nah.
I gotta argue this a little bit, Mo. And I love Wilfred Nancy. Let me preface that. I got a man crush on the way the Columbus Crew play soccer. But picking the coach, are we picking the coach that we think is going to be at the end of the season the coach of the year, or who it is right now?
Exactly.
You said they're on a historic run. A bunch of other teams have gotten to a CONCACAF Champions Cup final. 3 of them have won it, okay? First of all. Second of all, this is the team that's like winless in 6 in MLS. So is he really doing such a fantastic job? Plus, you're picking the team that's the defending MLS Cup champions?
Are you mad? Are you mad about this?
Poking a lot of holes in your argument, bro.
Let me go through that list for you real quick. Okay, so other teams have done it. So the most recent team that did that was who? Seattle, right? And how was Seattle doing?
LAFC.
LAFC, excuse me.
Year.
Sorry, correction. All right, relax a little bit. He's getting excited over there. He's getting excited over there. My point is that what's impressive about what Wilfred Nancy is doing is that they're still maintaining a decent position. And you mentioned the form that they're in. That's crazy to say. They're in that form, and yet they're still within striking distance of the top 4 of a home playoff position. So go ahead. Well, what else did you have for me? What else?
Winless in 6. That's
winless in 6.
Yeah.
Winless in 6. The priority has obviously shifted to CCC, and that's where their focus is. But in doing that, they're still maintaining a comfortable position in MLS. Now, if they were like 9th or 10th and outside the playoff positions, okay, I can hear your argument a little bit because that balancing act is not working out really well for them. But for them to still be, and especially the fact that they're in the East, if you're talking about them being in the West and they're in that position, I can hear you saying that. But they're in the East and they're still maintaining a comfortable position.
Well, I love Wilfred Nancy as much as you do, and Sash, but I think Coach of the Year in MLS right now, we can't give it to him. If the league stopped now, you're not giving it to Wilfred Nancy. It's impossible.
That is the
question. For me again, it's Chris Armas. I got another
best friend.
No, it's not even that. But if we look at what he's doing with this squad, it's unbelievable. This is a guy that's got Cole Bassett playing like Frank Lampard. They were one of the worst teams in MLS. They're 3 points off the top of the West. Again, I reiterate, we are not saying that at the beginning of the season. I don't have much more of an argument, but just looking at the table, what he's done week in, week out with that side is ridiculous. And one quick question for both of you. Why are we not bringing up Tata? Why is he not in the Coach of the Year conversation? Because he's got Messi, Suarez, and these guys.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you bring him up then? Yeah. Why are you asking that? Why'd you bring him up?
Because I'm doing the things you guys do. Now you're trying to pick little things from over here and make it sound beautiful. Tata's team is the best in the MLS right now, but we just ignore it. Why?
So because Tata has Messi, that erases him from
This is
the
why they're not saying
conversation.
his name.
I mean, Phil
Jackson
Jackson got Coach of the Year when he had Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Bill Belichick got Coach of the Year when he had Tom Brady at the Patriots. Tata Martino got Coach of the Year in 2019 when he had Joseph Martinez in Atlanta United. So I'm
sorry, Chris Armas. Tata is Coach of the Year.
All right.
Okay,
all
so
right.
Jill, is Tata your pick then, Jill?
Yes.
I brought it up. Don't do that.
Okay. All right. Can I make my case now? Because Brad said one of the worst teams in MLS are now one of the best. Okay, how about the worst team in MLS last season, Toronto FC? Now 5th in the Supporter Shield standings, above Colorado. John Herdman is the obvious choice. Buy in, buy in, buy in. That is what he has got from this team. Shane O'Neill, Sean Johnson, Richie Larea, Lorenzo Insigne, all missed a lot of time already this season, and they're still getting the results. He has turned the page for Federico Bernardeschi. He is leading by example right now on the field. This is a team that has made huge strides this season, and John Herdman deserves to be the Coach of the Year right now.
Toronto FC, 3rd in the East, like you mentioned. That's just 5 points behind Inter Miami. What are you laughing at, Brad?
Mo's not happy with Sasha, man. He had an argument for him there.
Go ahead.
Nah, let's go. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
All right. On that note, then, Mo, kick us off with biggest pretender.
Biggest, and okay.
And
Let me
not these
preface
guys.
this since we're all
Not
prefacing
these
things,
guys.
all right? I think pretender is a little bit harsh, and I'm going to say this because of how Sasha just described John Herdman and the job that he had in front of him. But I'm saying Toronto FC, and it's no fault of their own because the results they're getting, if you look at some of the numbers, the numbers are supporting them in terms of expected points in MLS. They're 7th, right? So it's not to say that I think they're overachieving or that they don't deserve to be in the position that they're in. I just look at this and I say because they're in the East, there are teams below them that I feel like have a higher ceiling and more capacity to kick on and leapfrog them. And the teams that I'm talking about, New York Red Bulls are right below them in 4th. Columbus is in 5th. And even further down, you have the likes of Philly who haven't been performing well. And at Atlanta United, if they get their star players to start performing at their level, I look at those teams as teams that can leapfrog Toronto FC. But like I said before, I love Toronto FC. I would love to see them continue at the pace that they're on because it's incredible to see this kind of turnaround.
But Mo, when you say pretender.
One sec, Sash. You know what Mo's calling for? He's upset that I gave you 2 your accolades and I didn't shout out that this is the 2007 Toronto FC Rookie of the Year of Major League Soccer. Sorry, Mo, that I waited till the end of the show to give you your shout. We're sorry because he keeps saying I got love for Toronto.
Yeah, Mo, when you say pretender, is that are they making the playoffs, or are you saying they're dropping out of the playoffs completely, or are they just dropping a few spots in the standings?
That's a good question. I can see Toronto being one of the last playoff spots. Yeah, I don't see them staying in that top 4 position that they're in right now.
Okay.
You disagree?
No.
I think when we're talking about pretenders, and again, no disrespect, but I got to be real. I look at Austin FC. Austin FC are way too reliant on Driussi for me. I think before he came back, we're not talking about Austin FC as a playoff team. He comes back, plays 4 of the 5 games. They only lose 1 game in 5. So if anything happens to Driussi, I don't believe in this team. I think that they would fall out of the playoffs. I see LAFC below them, a Houston Dynamo that's just got Herrera back. I see those kind of teams taking Austin FC's place in the playoff standards. But well done to them at the moment, but I don't see it throughout the season.
Sasha's point previously is a good one for this one then. 6th in the West. So what are they pretending then? That they will make the postseason?
No, they're not. I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
Okay.
I really don't.
Bold. I like it.
Squad.
I got to go the exact same way as Bradley and pick the team that's in 6th in the East, and that's Charlotte FC, and I don't think they make the playoffs either. And the reason for that is they can't win a game on the road. They've got 4 wins on the season. All of them have come at home against Portland, Toronto, New York City, and Columbus. The win against Columbus is their best win and their statement win of the season. But if you remember in that game against Columbus, there was a dubious red card, and Cucho Hernandez scored a goal that looked to be about onside by 2 yards that was called back. So I just don't see enough quality in this team to be able to go on the road and win games, and you have to do that in MLS to make the playoffs. So I don't see Charlotte being there at the end of the season.
And how can they when Enzo Capetti's just coming off of what was his first goal of the season in 9 games? Well, that does it for our show. Any final words before everyone on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else starts coming for you guys? Any final words with your end of third of the season awards?
I love it. Bring it.
Mo, you're an MVP finalist. Mo, you're an MVP finalist of my heart, bro. I love you.
Hey, that's all I need to hear, man. See, that's all I need to hear.
That's sweet. All right, well, enjoy Matchday 13 because you've got Rivalry Week presented by Continental Tire, and we will see you all next week.